How do you see that? What is the main cause for the bushfires around Australia?
Australia, by its very nature, is heavily surrounded and quite energized, actually. I haven't been in an association before. I've led a number of businesses before. It was a really interesting experience coming in initially because I had a picture in my mind.
What is the main skill set that helped you to come here?
Particularly when I wanted to make that journey out of this building products. What kind of skills do I need to bring?
Important is for you to build a proper team.
Yeah, the team is very important. My role is then to empower them and align them to the vision.
Why 80 to 90% of a business are failing in first 5 years?
So I think making that transition away from that comes down to a mental shift.
I would like you guys to join our community and wait for the inspiring videos. In 2009, more than 170 people were dead and more than 1 million animals were killed. Again, in 2019 to 20, more than 33 people were dead and more than 1 million animals were killed. It's all just because of bushfires. So today we have John Collie, the CEO of FPA, the Fire Protection Association. Hi John, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
And I'm so pleased to have you in this podcast to show what exactly FPA does to Australian people. So can you just bit explain me what FPA does?
Sure, yeah, happy to do it. We're the peak body for fire protection in Australia. What that means is essentially we're a member organisation and our members participate in fire protection across the country, whether that's from actively engaging in fire suppression systems, alarms or otherwise for the built environment, so buildings, new buildings and ongoing maintenance for the building that we're in right now, all the way through to accreditation for bushfire planning, so for new developments and new builds through to councils, planning departments and otherwise.
Yep. As you mentioned that it's a bushfirings, that's a major problem which Australia is facing from a long time. How do you see that? What is the main cause for the bushfires around Australia?
Australia, by its very nature, is heavily surrounded and blessed with fantastic bushland. Unfortunately, the nature of bushland is that it can catch fire. In the simplest terms, we live where we live. The best thing that we can do is plan ahead and try to mitigate the impact of fire the best we can by good planning practices and using good practitioners, using good disciplines to make sure that the right design implementations are put in place to ensure good planning codes and regulations are being followed. But then beyond that, it becomes the job of the fire brigades and the brigades around the country that do an incredible job to suppress those fires once they start. So they're the people that are protecting life and property right at the front line.
Yes, that's really good to hear. So what do you think, what is the major thing, like what is the most important thing that one should learn about this fire to, if somebody is in that position or in that problem, so what are the major small education they need to have to protect themselves or protect other lives?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The planning piece is critical. Agencies and that we deal with, fire brigades, there are government agencies and pseudo-government agencies, and there's associations like us that are active in this space, and we do our great work at the industry end and at the firefighting end. But it really does come down to the individual and the homeowner in particular to make sure that they have a plan in place, because we can do all the planning that we can possibly do to make sure that buildings are built in a way that is safe and practical and able to withstand or reduce the impact of fire as and when it does arise. But beyond that, it becomes have a plan. Make sure that you know what you're going to do in a fire and a fire situation. Don't try and plan it on the day while it's happening, because it won't be a plan.
Yeah, they should know what exactly basic lines to protect themselves from before.
Yeah, and it will be unique to the home and the location. So you'll know what you'll go through the plan. Local fire brigades can also help support with that. There's plenty of literature available to be able to have a fire plan is the key piece of advice.
What are the main areas which cause bushfires mostly in Australia, around Australia?
The cause of bushfires, so I mean, there are a number of causes. They can vary from electrical faults in buildings nearby bushy areas, electrical storms. Some of them can be unfortunately deliberately lit, and a number of other reasons. Although it's important to understand the reasons why fire starts to help with the mitigation, we do realise that we live in a country that is heavily laid with bush, and we will have fires. So then it becomes a matter of what happens after that.
Yes. And coming to the FPA, I think you have many various products sold in the FPA website. Can you explain me a bit about those products?
Yeah, so the products largely for our membership, 1,700 members, and usually they are anything between a very large corporate business that occupies the construction space, our little niche within the construction space, the fire protection industry, through to a single practitioner or engineer or a scientist or ecologist or a planner that is maybe a consultant, and what they do on their daily work is consult on specialised fire protection. So we have a range of products that help support every facet of how you can contribute to the fire protection industry, whether it's huge buildings that are being built and you're installing incredibly sophisticated fire protection systems, or you're consulting on a single property out in the regional areas and coordinating with your local government organisation, whether it's a local council or maybe a fire brigade.
Yes, that's really very interesting. What are the major benefits the members get in your website? Yes, something. Yep.
Yeah, we occupy a number of spaces. So training in particular, so skills development. So we run a registered training organisation, an RTO, and we're helping to upskill the industry and train the industry around the areas that are important for industry to meet their requirements to operate in this space. So that can be anything from student all the way through to retirement. Technical advice. So we have leading experts here and access to leading experts. We're helping do the research and writing the papers and publishing the papers. That's a membership benefit. And also providing direct technical advice. So members are calling in routinely, daily, and saying, I have this problem, I have a concern, I'm not sure how to interpret the standard for this various situation. Any situation can be quite difficult and quite challenging. It's not just the routine. Usually a fire system is designed to the building requirement, and buildings are different. They're all very different. Through to accreditation and licensing schemes and systems. So we run a number of licensing systems as well as accreditation through continuous personal and professional development. So the CPD programs that we run, assessments and other auditing and enforcement accreditation processes. Beyond that, representation and advocacy. Individual members might not have a strong voice as a collective, and through the lens of the Fire Protection Association Australia, they have a stronger voice to governments and other entities that have influence over the industry with which they operate in. We provide that voice, so we're kind of firing the bullets that are built from the materials provided by our members. So they're giving us the content and the insights into what's affecting them on the ground, and then we're trying to translate that through influence on policy, regulation, legislation, standards. We also offer a vehicle for our members to be able to contribute to standards. So we have a number of technical advisory committees where members will nominate to be a part of that committee. They have some level of expertise, and then they literally goes towards developing the Australian standards that govern the practices of the entire industry.
Like even you are doing some ozone layer policies workout for the environment too, am I right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we do hold a number of government contracts. They can be state-based contracts through our FPAS accreditation scheme, Fire Protection Accreditation Scheme. That's those that are working in fire system design or other areas. From an ozone perspective, that's an interesting one, and it's essentially a standalone contract that we have with the federal government and the soon-to-be launched EPA. We've had that contract for quite a number of years, over a decade now, and essentially what we do is we license those use the types of fire suppression systems that can deplete the ozone.
Yes.
So it's quite important stuff, actually. Halon gas, for instance, incredibly good at putting out a fire.
Yes.
Just incredibly good. And almost zero damage to infrastructure. So you can imagine how important that might be for expensive servers, military equipment, the list goes on. Downside, it destroys the ozone layer.
Okay.
Now, it's not necessarily about stopping the usage of halon gas and other greenhouse depleting and synthetic gases. It's about managing them well. So we run the programs and run the education program and the licensing scheme to be able to ensure that the people that are using halon are using it
In a safe way.
correctly
Yep.
to the regulation. They're housing it correctly. They're being audited routinely. And if there is a leak or if there is an accidental discharge or a discharge on purpose because it's doing its job, then that's recorded, audited, monitored, assessed, education, closing the loop.
Yes, you're just taking right guidance to the people who wanted to know how that can be done.
Yeah, and it's an incredible program, really. So we're invited along to COP28, which is the United Nations Framework Council on Climate Change in Dubai in just late last year. We were asked to talk about our program and the legislation that underpins it from the federal government. It genuinely is world class. We routinely have members from other countries, associations and otherwise talking to us about how did you do it? How did you get there? And I'd like to say it was all us, but we're delivering a great program that we're collaborating quite closely with the federal government.
That's quite interesting and very informative. So coming to the FPA, and how do you feel being CEO for FPA?
Quite energized, actually. I haven't been in an association before. I've led a number of businesses before, some of them quite large, some of them very large, actually, and some of them not so large. It was a really interesting experience coming in initially because I had a picture in my mind of what an association might be like and particularly the scale of the organisation, very different than what I've been used to, particularly in the commercial and corporate Australia. Yes. Those businesses that I've been involved in are very complex. They are, but they're complex by a scale.
Yep.
So they're huge. Hundreds of people, if not sometimes thousands of people, making all sorts of great things, and a lot of them, but it's only a few things. They just do many of them. So sure, it's complicated, but not this level of complexity. This is complex by scope. So yes. I've never had as many direct reports, people reporting directly to me than I do right now. Those department heads are vitally important, the entire executive team, to deliver the kinds of things that need to be delivered, and each of them can be largely independent. I can imagine for the ozone program, we could almost peel them off and have them separate to the organisation, and a week later they would realise that they weren't part of the organisation anymore. Such is the discrete nature of all of the different things that we do, and the level of expertise required. A really interesting industry. We're part of a very large construction industry. We're a very niche piece of it, and a very specialised piece. And the layers of complexity that exist within the fire protection industry is extraordinary, which means it necessitates us having expertise across a number of those various disciplines.
That is really, very grateful to have and be in that type of zone. And did you really wanted to be a CEO, and how did it happen?
How did it happen? It happened a little bit by accident to some degree. It just sort of happened, I guess, is the short answer. The long answer, if you'll indulge me. So I didn't set out to be a CEO. I didn't expect that would be where my career would lead when I first started as a carpenter. Because I was out on the building site on the tools as a carpenter as a young man, and I thought that at some point I would be a builder, and I'd be coordinating the building of buildings and
construction sites.
And making good building money.
Yeah.
That would have been fantastic. Fate often gets in the way of your plans, and as fate would have it, my boss at the time had a heart attack. Now, he's all right now and quickly recovered, but it meant that as a very young man, I had a choice to make. Do I wait over the period of time where he recovers and then start work again, or, as I was doing, living week to week. I need to make a choice about getting some more money into the bank account. I took a temporary job with CSR Limited, Building Products, Australian corporate entity. It was almost literally at the ground floor. So I was putting together packing boxes for export. They were timber boxes, and being a carpenter,
How it feels, I know exactly.
Yeah, I was quite good at putting those together.
Yeah.
So that went well, and I was interested in the work. It was honest work. So I was supposed to be there temporary. 15 years later, I was still there, but after having kind of rapid acceleration through the organisation, you put your head down, do the hard work, you get noticed, you put your hand up for opportunities, you make some of your own opportunities, and move through a number of different roles through out of that factory environment to team leader, production planning, contract management, key account management, sales management, general management, acquisitions and mergers. That was my 15 years stint at CSR. Quite a meteoric rise, I guess you could call it, through the ranks, and got exposure to a number of different things and different disciplines. I managed to, I owe a lot to CSR. I managed to get educated at a master's level through CSR Limited and make some great connections and get incredible experience. Then I made the decision that, you know what, I've been 15 years in the building product industry. I'm only ever going to be the building products guy. That's who I am now. Well, that was certainly the risk. So I made the choice to leave, and what I wanted to do was move outside of my industry and look to try and stretch. And I went for a huge stretch. I thought, well, I wonder if I can get into this organisation that does medical devices. I won't name who it is, but it's suffice to say they weren't interested in a building products guy. So I thought about it a little further, and I thought, well, maybe I can just move adjacent to the industry that I'm in, and I'll move into decorative products. And a number of different roles through those organisations, through general manager, group general manager, executive general manager, and then CEO of a civil infrastructure business. And then I was able to make the leap out of material things and products into services. So I moved into industrial services. I spent some time with an air conditioning organisation, Dakin Air Conditioning, their service arm, Airmaster. Then headed up their fire business. And then my role was to bring all of that together, the elements of this acquisition and some mergers that have been made, bring it all together and bundle it up and push it back into the broader HVAC business. So my job there was done after a while, mission accomplished, tick. Now it's time to get out. And I thought I'd have a year off, which would have been great. But 5 months in, people from Fire Protection Association knocked on the door and said, John, you should come in and interview. I said, no, thank you. I'm taking some
Straight away.
I said, I'm taking some time off. Thanks anyway. And they managed to come back around and convince me again. And I said, okay, I'll come in and talk. And then the more I learned about what gets done here and the people that are involved and the mission and what we're trying to achieve and our purpose, the more I started to really get energized by the work that gets done by not just the Fire Protection Association, but the entire industry. The level of complexity and the people that are involved, genuine people that are really trying to make a difference. And my entire team here at Fire Protection Australia really loves supporting that. And that was one of the learnings that I got when I first came into an association. The level of enthusiasm and passion, extraordinary. This is a non-for-profit, and it really feels like it. It feels like we're trying to make the best of everything that we have and supporting those that rely on us. I don't know if that's answered your question, but that's my journey of how I got to become a CEO. I have been one before. I hadn't intended to be one again, and then here I am.
Yep, really quite interesting and fascinating story. But I just want to ask you one thing, being a carpenter and being a CEO right now, what are the main skill sets you are focused at, and what is the main skill set that helped you to come here?
I did spend a lot of time thinking about that, particularly when I wanted to make that journey out of this building products kind of pigeonhole that I found myself in. It was, what kind of skills do I need to bring along the journey if I'm going to make this career progression through various different industries and try and take on new and interesting challenges? I'm not going to be able to do that if I'm leaning on my knowledge of technical aspects of building products or even just generally the built environment. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to move forward through my career if I have transferable skills. So I started to think quite deeply about that. Well, what am I actually bringing? And those higher level skills that I've really been concentrating on throughout most of my career now, which able to see opportunity, able to turn that opportunity into a plan, that plan to become a strategy, and then implement and deliver on that strategy, underpinned by bringing people along on the journey. They're my transferable skills. I can do those things repeatedly.
Okay. But to bring those skills into, practical things, you need a lot of dedication and a lot of strong mindset to take those type of decisions. So what do you suggest everyone to what type of mindset they should have to be in that position?
Yeah, you've got to be continually open to learning, and not just learning through the usual means. Just turn up to university, do your learning, turn off learning because now you're working. Continually learn. Look to people, good people that are doing it well or have seen things that you haven't seen, experienced things that you haven't seen, or succeeded in areas that you want to succeed in. Talk to them, engage with them.
Knock the doors, and one day one door will open. That's what you're saying? Yeah.
And most of the time, these people are very interested in, and I think people in general, very interested in talking about themselves and talking about their journey. I mean, listen to me, I couldn't shut me up.
If you take any Australian upcoming businessmen or small scale industry people, if somebody is interested in fire protection association or they wanted to start something in this industry, what are the major things they need to concentrate while building that particular business?
And talk about my experience with businesses in general, particularly from an entrepreneurship perspective. So you could be in any business, fire protection or otherwise, and you should look to your association to help support you to grow. And a good association will do that, and we can do that. But there's more to the story, particularly from an entrepreneur perspective. So often, we see the data, right?
Yes.
20% of new businesses fail in the first year.
Yeah.
30% in the second year. 50% by 5.
Yep.
By the 10th year, in less than 10 years, 65% of businesses fail. I mean, extraordinary numbers.
Yes.
Can you imagine that level of failure rate with doctors, pilots? You wouldn't get on a plane.
Yeah, because
You wouldn't. But it's not the fault of the entrepreneur, right? They're launching this business. And when we talk about business failure, what we're actually talking about is failure of people.
Yes.
People are businesses. You've started a business and you've put your blood, sweat and tears into it and made something out of nothing because of a dream probably that you've had to succeed in some area. What I find in my observations have been that that entrepreneurial nature that you bring, it comes with great ideas, it comes with incredible enthusiasm and passion, it comes with a great network that you've built up, it comes with an ability to be able to articulate your dream and energize people around you and bring people along on a journey. This incredible idea that you've brought, and you're able to forge this idea into something tangible, but that's not where business succeeds in the long term. The sustained health of a business is the boring bit. And having that switch in mindset from that energized entrepreneurial, let's create something out of nothing, transitioned into, okay, let's now work on this and roll up our sleeves and work on the nuts and bolts of it, the boring stuff. What are the systems we're going to be using? What are the processes that we need to use? How do we put repeatability into our program? How am I addressing my supply chain issues? How am I solving the little incremental problems, not the huge launch of a new thing? How do I do the boring stuff?
So what do you really think that why 80 to 90% of a business are failing in first 5 years? What is the major thing that is lacking in the young generation right now?
So I think making that transition away from that initial idea to this kind of business as usual cadence and mindset throughout any organization, any business is really important. And I think it comes down to a mental shift. So you've got to either recognize it and say, well, there'll be a small percentage of these entrepreneurs that are able to make that switch inherently. And they have all of the skill set at their
beginning.
They're incredibly creative. They can switch to the discipline required to long-term business success. Brilliant. That's not everyone. It can't be. very special people.
Yep.
That's a unicorn. So then what do the others do? Well, they need to make some choices. They either need to invest in that skill set and be disciplined enough to bring themselves along on that journey and add some education, talk to the right people. For most people, it's going to be bring people into your business, bring the right people into your business, people that are complementary to the skill set that you have. You've got to look within, you've got to look fairly deep within inside yourself and self-actualize and say, you know what? I'm great at this creative stuff. I can generate these ideas and I can turn them into something out of nothing. But what I can't do is do the daily grind of making sure our books are in order, making sure that we're getting paid on a routine basis, and making sure that our customers' deliveries are getting packed in the way that they're supposed to be packed. That needs to be somebody else, some other mindset. Find that skill set, bring them in.
How to find it? That's like, every person, when they wanted to do something and bring somebody into the business, how to find those persons? Because right now, if somebody is applying for one job, I think 60% of their resume is like, they don't tell something which they don't have. They're like, I got 5 years of experience, but if you come on the board, they can't do nothing till we explain them how to do it. So how do you think that we need to bring right people into the project?
I don't have the magic bullet for that.
But like generalized.
So I'm definitely faced with that same challenge on a routine basis, and I have been for the last 20 years. It's difficult to find good people to do the good things that you want them to do, but certainly not impossible. So some of the organizations that I worked in before, they've crunched the numbers on me, and we're talking about somewhere between the bandwidth of a 40 and a 60% failure rate in terms of HR. So this is transitioning people out and through. Now, in large organizations, there are certainly things that you can do. So, some organizations use cadetships. They bring people in from the ground floor, they bring them up. Another way of doing it, and I've seen significant success in large organizations before, is looking to pick great talent within the organization and deliberately pick them up and move them around the organization to take on different things. So kind of a rolling secondment program to get exposure of all sorts of different disciplines within the organization. And then those people become the next account managers, the next production managers, the next whatever the technical expertise required or whatever the positional expertise is required, and the next leaders. They become the next leaders. Difficult in a very small organization. Absolutely. You need to partner with somebody, I suspect, is probably the answer. Continue to create and craft your network, build your network, get yourself out there, talk to people, get to conferences, get to seminars, shake a lot of hands, take a lot of business cards, and reach out to people. I'm not talking build your network by clicking as many times as you can on connect on LinkedIn. LinkedIn can be helpful, but I'm talking about genuinely building a strong network of people that can rely on you. So bring something to the conversation, be an expert in something, and deliver that expertise to somebody for free, or better yet, help somebody make a connection with somebody else. Bring those two people together to help solve their problem. As you continue to build your network and your credibility, you'll start to meet people that complement your way of thinking and people that are able to offset some of the things that you might.
I think FPA is also involved in some award functions, giving presentations to the people regarding these connections. Can you explain a bit about that?
One of the ways that certainly people in the fire protection industry can network is to come along to our conference trade show and do the gala dinner, which is where the awards take place. They're pretty well sought after, those awards, and they're certainly taken very seriously. And these kind of events allow, so Fire Australia, it was this year, Fire Australia 24 is the name of the event. It was on the Gold Coast a couple of weeks ago. An incredibly intense period of time for someone like me who it's essentially my event, and I'm running around meeting people and ensuring things are moving smoothly and people are networking and having a good time and learning the things that they need to learn. But those kind of conferences and those kind of network events where you're going to meet the kinds of people that will be your next partner in innovation, your next partner in business, the person that is going to give you the great idea that you might have or challenge your thinking. If you're going in with that open mindset and looking for inspiration and looking for people to challenge you, you'll find them. They're out there.
But when you shake a hand, you can't predict what exactly that person is thinking about us, like what type of doors opens for us. So how do you think that the young entrepreneurs should present themselves while going to these type of awards?
I think fairly humble and looking to learn.
That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and looking to understand. Yeah. As soon as you're going into those kind of environments to teach somebody else, you've missed the point. You should be looking to be
Start open to learn for ourselves.
try and be
Yeah,
selfish
yeah,
initially,
yeah.
and see what's available to you, and do a lot of listening. Yeah, but you are right. It can't be just about shaking hands and nodding heads and taking business cards. It's no good having a collection of business cards this high, or
Yes.
a host of contacts in the LinkedIn profile. It's about making meaningful connections with people. And if you're able to somebody solve a problem or bring people together, they could solve the problem that they have, or meet the challenge that they faced, or solve that innovation issue that is driving concern for them. That's how you bring value.
Every time we meet somebody, we feel that, okay, let's do something, and we talk for a 6 months of period. Then we say that this guy is not right. So why it takes so long to think about that person, saying that, okay, this is not right guy. So why can't we do it as faster we can do, and change our plan to others?
A mentor is a tricky job, and not anyone can do it. It has a specific skill set attached to it, and really it's about being sometimes brutally honest, but for the most part it's about good listening and good questions. You need to ask questions, probing questions. If you're a mentor and you're telling somebody what to do and telling them how to do it, low chance of success. If you're working with somebody and asking them probing questions, what kind of things have you considered while trying to solve that problem? What's worked in the past? Okay. And when you tried those things, what was the outcome? Where was the benefit? Okay. And what other things did you discount, and why? So then, where do you think you could get more information for those kind of things? Almost everything's framed as a question. Then you're teasing out that kind of thinking, and you're helping not only the person that you're mentoring solve their own problems, which means that they usually get more buy-in to the actual solution. And we've seen that if you tell somebody to do something and give them advice, the likelihood of that happening is fairly low. But if they come to the conclusion themselves, the likelihood of that taking place and cementing in as a new way of being and a new way of moving forward, or even just the execution of solving that problem in a particular way, if it's come internally, it's come from them, and they've developed it themselves, that's when it sticks. Some mentors will take the approach that, well, I have a lot of experience, so I need to get that experience out. I need to give that to somebody. Here is my experience. Do something great with it. Probing and testing, asking questions, and drawing out who is inside the person that you're talking with, and having them work through a process of thinking to solve their own problems. That's my thoughts on mentorship.
That's very interesting. Initially, while choosing a mentor, so if you are talking to some person, okay, let's feel this guy is my mentor, he may have only certain limited experience. So if you want, you got all the experience you wanted, now you wanted to get some more experience. How do you deal these things? So how do you know that this is required for you?
I have a mentor. The way I chose that, well, it's kind of a relationship.
Yeah.
You end up choosing each other. You first have to work on the relationship piece. You got to be compatible. You've got to have respect for the other person as a foundation, and then you've got to work through building trust, because sometimes there's going to be some hard conversations. My advice would be, don't necessarily look for somebody that has all of the skills and all of the expertise that you want. You look for somebody that is able to close gaps in their own skill set and expertise through their approach to life and business. So find people that go and have the ability to go and solve problems, whether it's internal or external, and then allow them to help you through doing that and solving that. Because some of the best leaders that I've ever come across don't have all the answers. They don't. But the one thing that they do have is they know how to get the right answers. They know how to get the answers. And it's having the right network, it's having the right connection, talking and trusting the right people. That network building is, it's a slow process. 1 out of 10 are going to be a good contact. 1 out of 100 are likely to be of a caliber that you could have as a mentor. But really 1 out of 1,000 are going to be the ones that You respect what they do. You can build rapport and trust with them. They have a level of expertise that is commensurate to what you're trying to achieve, but they have the ability to impart knowledge, not just through verbalizing it, but working you through a system or a process of coming to the conclusion yourself.
If you are not open-minded, if somebody suggests you in that way, like very harsh, you will get offended indirectly. You don't take it as a positive way.
Yeah, you
Yes.
immediately take it as
Yeah.
criticism. Yeah, that was the point, I think, with Aldo. He'd framed it in a way, and this is the kind of
You
thing that
understand,
I learned
yeah.
from that conversation is, how do I make sure that I'm framing it in such a way that is right to the audience, right to the recipient, is going to get cut through that I need to be able to get them to understand that I do care about their success, and it is coming from a place of genuine kindness, and he actually used those words. I care about your success. So therefore I need to tell you this.
That's the only thing
Refreshing start to
Yeah.
a conversation, I think.
It's been how many years it's been like mentoring with him?
4 years now, I think.
Yeah. Are you still into business with him, or just like a mentor?
Sometimes when I have some particularly sensitive management problems that need to be solved, or at the moment I have him chairing a steering committee for a particular, delivering a particular capital expenditure project. So he brings some strong skill set in that space. He's an entrepreneur and business owner, and mergers and acquisitions in Australia, international. So, managing a $700,000 digital transformation is really not very difficult for him. But it means that I'm able to refocus on other things, and he's nearing retirement now. He's moved into retirement, and he likes coming out to do special little projects like that. So get somebody in your life that can support you in that way.
He enjoys working with you, actually. That's why he's like,
I think
come
that
back and help you out.
Yeah.
And if you are not CEO for this company, what do you think that you're going to be?
Why the hard questions?
No, it's not hard question. That's people see. That is the reason why we started this. It should be raw. How we started, what have you done to get to that particular position? We need that particular blueprint. Yes.
Yeah, the blueprint. Wow, it's tough, isn't it? Because everyone's blueprint's going to be different. And I can talk about mine. If I'm not the CEO of Fire Protection Australia, I'll definitely be a leader in some capacity. That's the piece I enjoy. I enjoy galvanizing a team, getting a team together, common purpose, moving together in that direction, and succeeding together, genuinely. So I'm quite competitive by nature, but I've always been involved in team sport. And I think that's a personal thing for me, because I've always been relatively athletic, and that's translated through school and through my younger years. I never gravitated towards single. So I was never a singles tennis player, or any sport where it was just you out there. I've always enjoyed that team environment, and I think that's translated through business. So if I wasn't the CEO of Fire Protection Association Australia, I would be leading some of the team somewhere else, doing something interesting.
How do you deal with the disagreements between you and your mentorship? So you may have a particular idea which you have like full confidence on that, but when you take it to your mentorship, they may say that, no, John, this is not going to work out. How do you take that thing and how to explain that?
That can evolve naturally in that relationship, and that's what I have. But I have seen it work where there's kind of a contract up front, or agreement that this is how we'll do it, and this is how we'll engage with each other, and this is what we'll do when we have an agreement, and that's already pre-prescribed up front, which might be helpful for somebody that is particularly disagreeable. In my situation, it tends to be that we just talk through the issue, and we both realize and we both know, and one of the things that we both hold true and hold dear is that we don't have to agree on everything. You don't have to agree. You have to get to the other end of it and find consensus on the path that you'll take forward, but you don't have to have agreement. Those are two subtly different things. So it means that you can have the disagreement and still not think that it's the path that you should be going on, or that the mentor thinks the path should be going on, but they're happy to support you to go through that journey and help you move forward with it, regardless of whether they think it's the right choice for you or the choice that they would make. And I think that's the sign of a really good mentor, that isn't rescuing you. They're not there to rescue you. It's your
Just to
life.
support you. Yeah.
It's your journey.
Yep.
They're there to support you. I found a mentor that makes that decision. It might come to the point where you need to have that conversation with your mentor and say, look, I really appreciate where you're coming from, and I hear you. I've heard what you've had to say. You've heard what I've had to say. We still don't agree, but that's okay. I'm going to move forward in this direction. Can I count on your support to move forward in that way, in that manner? They're going to say yes.
Or
They're a good mentor. They'll say yes.
Yeah, that's what my question is. If they're like, if they don't agree, they may say that, okay, that's fine, go, John, go. But internally, they may have, why did this guy doing this thing? I told him not to do it.
Which is also okay. Unless they start disrupting the process. If they're causing problems or damage, you got the wrong mentor. That's a big issue
we need to concentrate. Yep.
Either address that and fix it with them and be very clear about that. And if it's still not fixed, move on. Find yourself another mentor.
That's
too important.
Yes. In this process, being a CEO, how important it is for you to build a proper team, around you?
Yeah, the team is very important. So incredibly, in fact, more important than me by an order of magnitude. This organization, and don't tell my board, but this organization would continue to run without me.
Yes.
Such is the good people that are here doing the stuff that needs to be done, right? So I think for me, one of the most important decisions that I've made and continue to make on a daily basis is to get out of the way of good people. I'm not bringing these people in so that I can tell them exactly what to do when they're supposed to do it and how to do it. I bring them in so that they can do it and they can tell me how they want to do it. And my role is then to empower them and align them to the vision so that we're all moving in the same direction and keep that alignment. But really, it's get experts around you and get out of their way.
But getting out of the way is also sometimes maybe the problem, because I'll say, if you got an idea and you have a level of expectations with like 10, so if you tell them, okay, I need this one, can you get it done? But they got you only level of 5. So how do you tell them that this is not the level you expected and that's where you want it?
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're talking about the difference between leadership and management.
Yep.
So when leading people, get out of their way. Don't be in there interfering with them. But the strong management piece is, okay, how are we going to measure your success? What kind of conversations are we going to have, and on what level of routine are we going to have those conversations around the things that you and I have already agreed you're accountable for in this space? These are the metrics that we agreed. This is how we're going to measure you. This is how often we'll talk about it. And this is what we'll do when it's not going well.
If he's not reaching your level, what are the decisions you can make? Just like fire them away?
Absolutely. They got to go.
No negotiations, no negotiations at all for that.
No, absolutely not. It's going to take a lot for me to fire somebody, I've got to say. We go through quite a journey. The other thing that I will say is, if you need to terminate somebody for performance, it should not be a surprise to them. If it's a surprise, like performance management and leadership and managing people isn't a mystery novel. You don't wait to the end to find the answer.
Yes.
You should be having those conversations with people routinely,
regularly,
ongoing. There should be absolutely no surprises. Once it gets to annual review or half-yearly review, whatever appraisal period you happen to subscribe to, you shouldn't be presenting a whole laundry list of things that have the person absolutely blown away. And I had no idea that I was doing any of those things. What do I do about those? How do I help? What happens now? Well, you've done it wrong. Those conversations should be happening all the way through. Ultimately, you will need to get to a point where, if there is a misalignment between the skill set, mentality, even the desire to be there, that's going to happen. It will. If you're having a mature conversation with that person along that journey and taking them through these regular conversations about their level of performance and doing it fairly and equitably and providing the support that they need to be able to get to a level that's required by not just me, but the organization in general, and what's demanded of their role, and the other departments and people or teams that might rely on their outputs that come from them. This is all really important stuff. If you're able to articulate that over that journey, often these people will self-select out. They'll say things like, you know what, I don't think so.
I'm not sure that I can do that.
I'm not sure if it's for me. I'm not sure I can continue to do this. And that's a good conversation to have.
Yes.
What kind of things do you think you might be interested in, might be able to do in the organization? And then that becomes an opportunity not to terminate somebody, but to move them into a position where they might be better suited, which
And
happens
yes,
quite a lot.
and if a person is knocking your door and explaining you that he's not suitable for the role, that's thing I think it should be respected, and give him one more chance. Okay, just select your own role. So I'll give you one more chance to prove yourself.
Sure.
Yeah, giving opening doors for himself.
Yeah,
That creates a lot of space around team.
it's a
And
brave
yeah,
thing to do.
yeah,
To
and yeah, a lot
walk
of
into your boss's
yeah,
office and say, I don't think I'm suited to this role.
yes,
That should be celebrated.
yeah,
You should say, thank you
and
for
he
coming
should
to me.
be sad. Like, we need to sit down and talk to him, like,
Let's talk through
what's
it.
going on. Okay, what do you feel about the procedure? What do you feel about the company? How do you think that you are going to help in the future? We
right.
don't want to lose those type of people,
No,
because they're very valuable persons.
yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, building a team is so essential in right now generations. People are missing that one thing, because getting right people into the project, taking care of their every personal things, it is the leadership. All the CEOs need to learn this one particular thing. Otherwise, maybe they'll survive for a couple of years, then the company fails. That's right.
Yeah, organizations can tick along relatively well with a bunch of people doing the things that they think that they're supposed to do. But if you want a genuinely high-performing organization, there's a lot more to it than just getting the jobs done on a daily basis.
And I have this big doubt in creating high performance industries, as we are talking just before. The Samsung is a paper company. It
Yeah, we were.
immediately changed into the technology, electronic
Incredible.
devices. What do you think that why they take that innovative decision that they are not going to do this well, and they change it immediately and convert into other projects?
I suspect that there are a number of reasons for that. I think the largest and the most comprehensive of those reasons is likely a substantial change in the external environment. So something in the world around them changed. Didn't bother to check in with them. Didn't say to them, hey, the world's about to change. What do you think about that? It just does it with impunity. It's companies that are able to see that as either the threat that it is or the opportunity that it presents. This external environment, it doesn't choose winners or losers. Couldn't care less.
Yes.
It just changes. It's how you react as a leader and with your team and as a company as a whole to address the changing environment. I suspect that Samsung took a very clear look at what was happening in the external environment, and I suspect in this case saw significant opportunity to pivot, and they focused and did it. Wow, what a success story.
Will be like heavy loss for the company taking decision and changing their production into something immediately?
It absolutely can be. It can come with a lot of risk, for sure. Can amount to, and I can't imagine what the decision making was at Samsung or any other company for that matter, but it can come down to the risk versus reward. So, we see examples of where the decision wasn't taken. Kodak, for instance, they decided not to pursue digital photography. Maybe they should have. Blockbuster Video decided not to pursue the Netflix platform of streaming.
It's the biggest. Netflix is right now.
Yeah. So they had an opportunity to be delivering DVDs, but no, they didn't like that idea. They preferred the late rental fees, and that was a big part of their revenue stream, and that wasn't something that they were willing to risk. But doing the proper analysis and assessing the risk versus reward, risking the $2 million in revenue, I think it was, for the late fees versus the size of the opportunity, even a tenth of what Netflix is worth at the moment, you would choose to take that risk every day of the week, right? It's difficult in the moment.
If the right person is taking that decision, I think the company will not go through that particular problem. Because if as a CEO, you tend to see next 40 years, what is the technology going to be, how it is going to be evaluated. Then we need to take a decision right now to, beat the challenges. So if somebody is lacking these skills, I think these are the little bit problems they tend to.
Yeah, so the decision-making piece it's vital. And there's obviously a lot that goes into making that decision, a lot of work that needs to be done to get the amount of information and data and foresight and insight as to what the right decision that needs to be made. Implementing that is the next important piece. That change management piece. I mean, I couldn't even imagine what Samsung's change management regime must have looked like to go from a paper tissue company to a
Technology, yeah.
technological giant. Extraordinary, right? So that change management piece is really important, and we can draw some lessons from some of these big change management initiatives to apply in our own business. And businesses are constantly changing. They're always adjusting. They lose talent, they gain different talent that enables them to do different things, and they choose to exploit that. New markets open up. They have a requirement for expansion, regulation changes, economic instability, stability can be a change, and you need to react to that. Taking the decision, yeah, sure, that's really important. But implementing that, making that change cemented is really important. And often for me, in my experience, has been that change succeeds by what doesn't change, paradoxically. So it's kind of like when you're moving house. That's a big change in your life. And there's a lot of moving parts to it. It's a big decision. A lot of stuff has to go into it to make sure that it works and it happens right. And then you take all of your stuff and you put it in this new location, and it still feels uncomfortable, and you don't want to be there, and you're worried about the decision that you've made. But as soon as you start putting all the familiar things and all the things that can anchor you in your previous mindset in this new environment, suddenly, very quickly, you become comfortable. It's exactly the same thing with business. You'll end up with this kind of platform that you need to leap from. So you set that on fire, but let's bring across the things that are important to the organization. Will you still be talking to the same people? Yes. Will you still be sitting in the same chair at the same desk? Yeah. Will you still be reporting to the same person? Yeah, you sure will. Will you be doing largely the same stuff? Yep. But you'll also be doing these important things. And here's why they're important. So having an ability to anchor people to the stuff that is familiar and the stuff that they have comfort in is important for any change.
That's really quite interesting topics we had. And I'm so happy that you are here to explain me all these things.
That was fun.
And see you again.
Great.
Thanks
so much.